Welcome to Americana Archives. Today's headline is Sheridan's Ride, parts of it described by one of the general's aides. The subheadline says, Signs of disaster and retreat greeted the plucky rescuer at every step as he neared the front. Mounted on his black horse, Little Phil inspired all. It says, We came suddenly upon indubitable evidence of battle and retreat. About a mile in advance, the road was filled, and the fields dotted with wagons and men belonging to the various brigade, division, and corps headquarters, and in among them officers' servants with led horses, and here and there a broken ambulance, settlers' supply trains, a battery forge or two, horses and mules hastily packed with officers' mess kits led by their cooks, and now and then a group of soldiers, evidently detailed enlisted men, attached to the headquarters trains. In fact, this was the first driftwood of a flood just beyond, and soon to come sweeping down the road. Passing this accumulation of debris with a rush by leaving the pike and galloping over the open fields on the side of the road, we pushed rapidly on, but not so quickly but that we caught an echoing cheer from the enlisted men and servants, who recognized the general and shouted and swung their hats in glee. Within the next few miles, the pike and adjacent fields began to be lined and dotted everywhere with army wagons, settlers' outfits, headquarters supply trains, disabled caissons, and teamsters with led mules, all drifting to the rear, and now and then a wounded officer or enlisted man on horseback or plodding along on foot, with groups of straggling soldiers here and there among the wagon trains or in the fields, or sometimes sitting or lying down to rest by the side of the road, while others were making coffee in their tin cups by tiny campfires. Soon we began to see small bodies of soldiers in the fields with stacked arms, evidently cooking breakfast. As we debouched into the fields and passed around the wagons and through these groups, the general would wave his hat to the men and point to the front, never lessening his speed as he pressed forward. It was enough. One glance at the eager face and familiar black horse, and they knew him. And starting to their feet, they swung their caps around their heads and broke into cheers as he passed beyond them. And then, gathering up their belongings and shouldering their arms, they started after him for the front, shouting to their comrades farther out in the fields, Sheridan, Sheridan, waving their hats and pointing after him as he dashed onward. And they, too, comprehended instantly, for they took up the cheer and turned back for the battlefield. To the best of my recollection, from the time we met the first stragglers who had drifted back from the army, his appearance and his cheery shout of "Turn back, men, turn back," faced the other way, as he waved his hat toward the front, had but one result: a wild cheer of recognition, an answering wave of the cap. In no case, as I glanced back, did I fail to see the men shoulder their arms and follow us. I think it is no exaggeration to say that as he dashed on to the field of battle, from miles back, the turnpike was lined with men pressing forward after him to the front. After the whole line was thoroughly formed, I rode over to my chief and urged him to ride down it, that all the men might see him and know without doubt that he had returned and assumed command. At first he demurred, but I was most urgent, as I knew that in some instances, both men and officers who had not seen him doubted his arrival. His appearance was greeted by tremendous cheers from one end of the line to the other, many of the officers pressing forward to shake his hand. He spoke to them all cheerily and confidently, saying, "We are going back to our camps, men, never fear. I'll get a twist of these people yet. We'll raise them out of their boots before the day is over." And no time did I hear him utter that terrible oath, so often alluded to in both prose and poetry, in connection with this day's work. This article was originally published as a story entitled Sheridan's Ride, written by General George A. Forsyth of the United States of America in Harper's Magazine. This story came from the great state of Wyoming, being reported in the Daily Boomerang of February 21st, 1898. Thank you for joining us today. If you want to continue to uncover all of America's lost and forgotten history, then remember before you leave to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and remember to like and comment below. And we will see you next time on Americana Archives.